Yeah.
Hello and welcome, friends, to the 52 Coffees podcast. I am Cindy Williams, your host, and I am so glad that you are here to this special Mother's Day edition. Every week, I have on extraordinary women who are living exceptional lives, advancing daily, and achieving their dreams. But first, before we even get started, I want you to know that 52 Coffees is sponsored by Lead My Life, which is a dynamic coaching platform and community for women who are ready to unlock the life of their dreams. If you want to know more, make sure you check out leadmylife.com and also subscribe on any channel that you podcast, Spotify, Apple, subscribe so you can get more of 52 Coffees podcast. And today, I am so excited to announce a special mother-daughter edition just for Mother's Day. And I have on the most amazing woman, young woman. She is a graduate of TCU in 2022. She is working in marketing and PR in the hospitality industry. And she is also my most beautiful daughter. So
Aw.
today, I just thought it'd be so much fun to have Megan Williams on and discuss her amazing journey into adulthood, into your 20s, and you didn't take a normal path. So welcome, Megan. Say hello.
Hello. I'm so excited. This is going to be a special episode.
It will be very fun. We have no trouble having a conversation, so this will be good.
Definitely not.
So I thought, it'd be fun first for you, Megan, to kind of tell us about your beginning. You had a different path into college. So tell us a little bit about your upbringing, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So I started life dancing.
you did. You
I
did.
was I was always a dancer. You put me into ballet at like 2 years old, right?
Yeah, like
Something
two and
like
a half.
that.
Uh-huh.
So I guess my non-traditional path was that for the majority of my life, I thought that I was going to be a professional ballet dancer. That's where my passion really lied. I did strictly classical Russian ballet, and I loved every second of it. There was a lot of challenges, and I think it grew me into like the person I am today. So obviously grew up in California, and then I went to Herod Conservatory for high school, which was a Russian ballet conservatory, which we can get into. And I then went to TCU and majored in strategic communication and minored in psychology. And now I live in Dallas. So
Woohoo! Yes, which is
a brief
sad and
overview.
that was a quick overview. So let's unpack that a little bit
Yes.
because you said a lot there. One of the things was that you left home, California, flew all the way across the United States, Boca Raton, Florida, to go to high school. And that was something as a mom that was really hard to do, mom and dad, to
Yeah.
let you do that. Why on earth would you want to leave your cozy little home and
Yeah.
go all the way across the United States? What spurred you to do that?
It's funny because I know that it was a dream of mine, but I just remember like growing up, I had like obviously a huge imagination, as you know, and I was always playing house. I was always playing school, but when I was playing school, I was playing boarding school, like my American Girl dolls and or Barbies, Polly Pockets, all of them. And so I kind of had this like obsession with boarding school, and I, like, obviously was very into ballet. I got into this TV show, Dance Academy, which is about, like, a ballet boarding school. And I think that's kinda where, like, that idea started from, like, a very young age. I think I was probably, like, 10.
I
And
had totally forgotten about that, the dance.
yeah, but it's
That's
funny
right.
because think back and I'm like, that's where, like, the first idea of this, like, popped in my head was because I
Uh-huh.
was, like, obsessed with that TV show, which I feel like everyone can relate to this, but, like, their favorite book growing up or, like, TV show, like, kinda dictates your life a lot.
That's a little
It's
scary.
it is, but, like, I mean, it's what you consume is what you, like, put out into the world, so, like, I got, like, obsessed with that, and like, dance was starting to get more and more serious. People were telling me that I was, like, good enough to maybe be professional one day, and I was like, "Okay, like, I guess this is, my path." And I started doing a lot of research, just, like I feel like when you turn, like, 13, 14, it's funny that, like, this has to be, like, such a serious decision, but you have to, like, make such a serious decision at such a young age of, like, "Am I gonna pursue this, like,
Mhm,
seriously and sacrifice, like, a regular high school experience, a regular college experience, or kinda make that choice?" And for me, like, I wanted to do something different, and I remember, like, putting a lot of research in. I was going to different dance studios and meeting people that were also, like, super serious and really talented, and I wanted to be as talented as them.
mhm,
And so that's when I started finding out about, summer intensive programs, but then also these year-round schools where basically these year-round schools are feeder schools into professional ballet companies. And so
mhm.
it's like if you really want a shot at being a professional ballet dancer, like, you should be going to one of the best schools in the country. Otherwise, like, your typical, like, rinky dink dance studio isn't gonna cut it. Like, you have to put in put in the time and the effort. Um, and I think that's what really inspired me. And then I remember just, like, thinking about it a lot, and I remember being on the drive home from dance with you, and I was in between what is it? You go freshman year is 8th grade, right? Or ninth grade?
Yeah,
High
ninth.
school? I
Yeah,
was in between 8th and ninth grade, and I was supposed to, start high school, and I remember, like, it had to have been, like, early summer of
yeah.
between middle school and high
Right,
school,
right,
but I
right.
remember, like, in the car, I was like, "Mom, I don't wanna go to normal high school." You remember that?
I do remember that conversation. And
Yeah,
it's beginning to be, you spent so much time in the ballet studio.
yeah,
You were so dedicated to it, and you really wanted to be the best at whatever
yeah,
you were doing, and it was ballet.
yeah,
And in order for you to spend the amount of time that you needed to spend doing it, going the traditional route in school wasn't going to cut it. So, just like with any, whether you're training for the Olympics or to be a professional football player or whatever it is, you have to make some decisions that are deviating from the norm.
yeah.
And so what choice did we make?
Yeah, obviously deviated from the norm, but
Yeah.
and yeah, but I just remember being in that car ride with you and being like, I don't wanna go to, normal high school. I kinda just had this feeling of, like, that's just not gonna happen for me, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
And you and dad were obviously, like, so supportive, and there wasn't even, like, a question. It was just like, "Okay, like, let's just go full throttle then." And
Yeah.
that's when, I started really going to the summer intensive programs, like spending more hours at the studio, and taking it a lot more seriously. And that's when I started doing more research on Herod. And it was about a year long audition process. Started in what was the city? It was like in San Diego.
Yeah, we did
I was
that.
gonna say Chino Hills, but it wasn't. It started
Yeah,
with a C.
no, it was down in San Diego, but even before that, you had a big, I think it was kind of a big breakthrough summer.
Yeah.
You're really, well, you had the one odd summer intensive, but the second one, you want to talk about that? The big one that you qualified for, went to the Big Apple.
Okay, yes. I was gonna say, I'm like, are you talking about Ballet Magnificat? Like, technically,
Yeah.
that was my first summer
That
intensive.
that was that was your first, but really just your
Yeah,
first big one that it was a big deal to
yeah.
get accepted to it, really.
Yes, yes. So my first summer intensive program that I really did was Bolshoi in New York, which is a Russian ballet company, and they're pretty intense. And that got me introduced more into, like, the Vaganova method and Russian ballet, because before then, like, all my teachers were, like, American classical.
Mhm.
Um, and so I, like, was tall and thin, and that's what the Russian ballet, like, instructors like, and so naturally, like, I fell into that path, and I ended up going to Bolshoi for the summer, um, and yeah, it was I remember being so excited, like, it was different, like, I wasn't as nervous for that one because I was coming home, like, it was a summer. I
Mm.
was nervous in the sense that, I don't know anyone, I don't speak Russian, and I'm gonna have Russian instructors, and they're gonna be a lot more intense than, my sweet teachers at my dance studios, like, it was just gonna be a lot more intense, and, I remember, like, we get into the dorm, I was definitely nervous, and I think, like, anytime that we had to say goodbye, I felt like I had to just, like, put on this, like, fake tough persona.
And you did, you did.
Yeah,
You would you were always so funny in that way. When I left you in New York, that
yeah,
first tour, and it was gonna be 6, 7 weeks, and
yeah.
I remember I would just have to turn around and then I would look back and you would just I could tell you were just so purposed in your heart to stay there and this is what you were going to do. You would not look back at me as like, okay, I'm
I
doing it.
couldn't
Even
look
though
back, yeah.
you couldn't look back. You couldn't look
Yeah.
back. And
If you look back, then you start to get sad and then you're like, "Oh, like, I don't actually wanna leave," like, and that's where, like, I feel like jumping into the deep end and just, like, doing it, like, doing it scared was kinda like my life motto back then, like, still is, but, like, I've gotten less scared, I think, I've gotten more confident in myself, but especially then, like, in a huge city that I had you know, no clue how to navigate, and I learned, and I was 15 and, it was scary, but I think, what really helped is, like, it was so much fun that there was so many girls, like, my age, like, we had, like, people in RAs that, we had moms there too that, like, wanted to stay there for the summer that were, like, RAs that could help guide us and stuff, so it's, like, really leaning on those people, but then, like, always knowing that you're a call away or, like, if anything were to happen, like, you're just one plane ride away and it would be okay, um, and so not getting in my head in that way, but yeah, and when we started, the classes were scary because we had the Russian ballet instructor, and then we had the translator. And so you'd be getting yelled at by 2 people in 2 different languages, and I was not used to that at all. But I think I ballet is, like, a really tough industry, and you have to, like, almost, like, take your, like, personal side out of it. Like, they always said that, like, your body is your instrument.
Mhm.
Because, like, any critique that you're given, like, is never personal. It's always like, "Suck in here," like, "Straighten your legs here," like, "Lift up," whatever. Whatever it is. But, like, they're always, like, bodily, like, critiques, which can be hard because sometimes, like, you can't naturally, like, move that way, and they're trying to get you to move in an unnatural way. But just learning I honestly, like, had to kinda put in on, like, my marine my marine mindset.
Yeah, I think you
Yeah,
developed a lot of mental toughness.
yeah,
That I think that was kind of like a turning point for you.
yeah,
Um,
and the moments that it was scary, it's like I had to learn how to, like, compartmentalize, like, my fears because I was always, like, a very anxious child and, like, I was scared growing up, just, like, of being independent, but doing, like we talked about, like, summer camps or ballet intensives, and it's, like, those slow, like, 1 week at a time, I'm away from home, I get more and more confident, and so, by that point, I was 15 and I had already, been a couple weeks on my own before, been a month on my own before, so it's like, what's another 2 months?
right, and
Yeah,
I think there's a lot to that because I know just from the mom perspective, I would I got a lot of very negative feedback from momhood around me, like
Yeah.
the non-ballet moms, what the heck are you doing?
Yeah.
Sending your daughter all the way across the country to New York. What is that? And there's a lot of mom guilt that you would receive. But when you have a child who's capable and who
Mhm.
has a dream, and
Yeah.
you know that they have the mental toughness to do it because they've been preparing this for this their entire life, am I going to hold you back simply
Yeah.
because I'm afraid?
Yeah.
Or simply because I'm feeling guilty about what all the other moms are saying to me? No, this was a way that we could support you in what you wanted to do, and this is the path to do it.
Yeah. And I think, like, if you had been too scared or not wanted to let me go, like, I would be an entirely different person. Like, I don't even know what I would be like, and I don't think I would be as confident. I wouldn't be as, like, mentally tough. I think now, obviously, like, everyone's, like, still sensitive. I'm still a sensitive girly to my core, but, like, I when, like, bad things happen to me, like, I'm able to, like, have it roll off my shoulders a little bit more. Or, like, when it comes down to it, if something, you know, bad happened, like, the other day, I got the job rejection or something like that. I allowed myself to cry for 2 minutes, and then I was like, "Alright, you know what? No, like, let's just move on. Like, gotta move forward." And I
Right.
think I wouldn't have that ability if it wasn't for these experiences growing up.
Right, right. So what would you say? Well, first I'm going to say one thing because I
Yeah,
would encourage if you have a daughter, moms, or if you're thinking about going away for a ballet, something like this, or you're just leaving home maybe for the first time, is that you start the preparation steps early, and we did that and we didn't know we were going to release you to the ballet world when you were 15,
yeah,
but we did start to send you to Kanakuk camps in Missouri when you were in fourth grade, you and your brother, and you went away for 2 weeks, and then you went away for a month, and
yeah,
you started getting used to everything that we taught you. You were then able to put into practice for a couple weeks in your own and understand what it meant to kind of be on your own. So I think that helped prepare you. And then
totally.
the one thing I remember when you got accepted to Bolshoi, and I'm like, okay, we need to have some financial training because you were going to be totally on your own and
Yeah.
like, having to use a debit card or a credit card.
I
And
was more scared for that than I
yeah,
was,
you
like,
were,
on
you
my
were. So we started training like here in January, and you're going to leave in August or no,
Yeah.
in June or whatever. And we went to Jersey Mike's. Do you
Yep,
remember that?
of
And
course.
and I sat in the car and
It's
I
like a
gave
pivotal moment of my
it
childhood.
was, it was. And I gave you my debit card and I said, go in there and order us our lunch. And you're like, what? I'm like, yeah, this is New York training. And you had to go in there and take care of it yourself. And it's like from that point on, you started to develop the skills that you would
Yeah,
need to be able to handle yourself.
yeah, and I definitely, I almost got, addicted to that feeling of independence. Like, I really liked once I, did the Jersey Mike's thing, and I realized I was able to, go into a restaurant and order by myself and do the whole thing by myself. It, gave me the sense of confidence, and then I remember being in New York, and I did a lot of things, on my own or, just me and a friend or something like that, and I remember, we went to a sit-down restaurant, and I was like, "Oh my god." I was just, it felt, very weirdly independent, having to pay for that on your own or, well, not on my own, but but
Yeah, I know.
yeah, but I definitely, started to enjoy that independence, and so that's also something that, each time I had an experience where I got to be more and more independent, it definitely grew my confidence.
Right. So let's move forward into, I mean, that was kind of like a trial run. So a couple months in New York. And I feel like New York was a different place back then too, in
Yeah,
2015.
definitely felt safer.
Yeah, and we went there 5 days early to learn how to do the subway system and
Yeah.
all that.
I
But
felt so comfortable that I rode the subway system myself. Now, I wouldn't do that. Like,
Right,
as
right.
like a 23-year-old, I wouldn't do that.
I wouldn't do what a 15-year-old would. Yeah, interesting. But
Yeah.
moving forward into the whole Herod experience, and obviously you had to audition, and that was a big deal because do you want to just briefly talk about like what Herod is and what it takes to get in there?
Yeah, so the Hair Conservatory is located in Boca Raton. It's a ballet conservatory, all Russian instructors. They're all from Moscow or St. Petersburg. Some of the best like ballet academies in the world they've graduated from. So it was a big deal in terms of training. How they positioned themselves was it was a nonprofit conservatory, so it was basically tuition free. So you had to audition a lot of times in order to to get in. Um, it was a really small school. It was about, I think max capacity was like 50 kids. In my time, it was never over that, or I think the highest was like 45.
Hmm.
Um, it was a year-long audition process because you had to get into their summer program first, and then from there they would make cuts to get into the year-round program. So the audition process for me, I had an audition for the summer program, let's say like wintertime, and I auditioned. It was about like I think they pulled from like 500, 700 dancers,
Yeah.
and they picked around 60 dancers.
Mhm.
And I was lucky enough to get into the summer program. Um, and once I got into the summer program, I went for, I think it was only like 2 months. Like it was like 2 months,
It was,
something,
yeah, it was a
it was like
shorter.
6 weeks or something like that. So I loved it. I, met great friends. It was obviously a beautiful spot to have a conservatory. The instructors were intense, but I learned a lot, and I really liked like the environment of Harrod. Um, and so from there, basically, you would find out if you got into the year-round program about a week after the summer program ended. So we were in a layover in Dallas, and I remember like walking past the Dallas Cowboys merch store, and we got and we got the email that I got in, and it was just like, whoa, like,
Oh,
and I was like, wow, like your life is about to change. Like you're
drastically.
and it
Yeah.
was like, "Oh, I'm moving to a new state, and my whole life is gonna change in 3 weeks." And I was, I think, what, 16, like, freshly 16. Um, and so it was I was excited until I got to, like, move-in day, and then it was like it kinda became real. I have a really hard time for, like, things to become real for me, like, I have to be, like, in it, or, like, sometimes, like, with college graduation, like, it hit me, like, a year later, like, like, it will take, like, a long time, and I think for me, like, when we were moving my stuff there, it was like, "Oh," like, when I'm, like, leaving my mom, like, I'm not gonna see her until Thanksgiving, like, it was crazy, and I think we planned a trip for you to come out until October, which was better, but it's still, like,
It was a long time.
it was a long time,
Yeah.
and, that was really, really scary, and more context on Harrod is that it's a full, like, high school, so you basically we would have, like, academic classes from, like, 7:45, 8 a.m. to, 12:30ish, then we'd have, like, a quick lunch, and we'd be dancing from, like, I think it was like 12:30, 1 o'clock to like 6 p.m. And then we'd have dinner, and then we'd have more like homework and academic classes until about like 8 or so. And then we'd have like an hour or two to like hang out with our friends. And then we'd have to be in our rooms by 10:30. So it was really strict as far as like rules go. I will say they probably had to be like that because in the past they weren't strict and things kind of got out of hand. So I think that's why they had those rules in place. But it was definitely like ballet military school. But it truly like shaped me. And I think like everyone that I was in it with, like we all became like really, really close. Um, but that's kind of the context of Herod. And
Right.
then when we were moving in, it was the night before, and that's when I had like a big meltdown.
We both had a big meltdown.
Yeah, because it became real that it wasn't just some like fun boarding school dream anymore. Like it was serious and it was really scary because I always hated the unknown. I like to go into everything prepared, and I was terrified. I luckily like was good friends with my roommate, Chloe, and so I like knew her going in, and I had my one friend Lauren, who I'm still friends with to this day, and Chloe too. But anyway, I think like that helped me. But yeah, we went to dinner the night before. I'm the night before the first day of school, and we went to California Pizza Kitchen, and I was just like freaking out. And I
Yeah,
think I cried
you
the
did.
first night by myself
Yeah,
to
yeah,
sleep.
yeah. Which is unlike you, but and for me, just as a mom, seeing you cry and seeing you be scared, but yet knowing that you had prepared your whole life for this.
Yeah,
And I knew that you just needed to adjust into it. But for me, getting on the airplane, I
was
mean,
probably
it's
the
really hard
hardest.
to see you cry and be sad. I knew you would be okay. You were in good hands, but getting on the airplane and then flying 3,000 miles across the country and knowing that I left my daughter in a different state,
Yeah,
that was very difficult. And then
yeah,
coming home knowing that you would not be home until Thanksgiving,
yeah,
that's when it got rough.
yeah. And I think like that adjustment was hard because I was like, oh, like this is my like life now.
Mhm.
And like I'd say like the first like 3 months of Herod were hard.
Mhm.
And it was hard in the sense of like adjusting to the really intense schedule. It was hard adjusting to, okay, like I used to be one of the top dancers at my studio at home, and now I feel like I'm the worst one here. Um, because they were all just so talented. Like everyone there was from all around the world. You had people that like ballet was everything to them. And I loved ballet, but it wasn't everything to me. Like I mean it was pretty much everything because I like gave I sacrificed like my life for it. But like I still like had, you know, things outside of ballet that I really enjoyed. And some of these people, it was like, "Oh, you like to like go outside and ride a bicycle? Like you're so weird." Like, you know, like and I like had to find friends that also agreed with me on that. Like their level of bunheadness, which is like a term for
Love
someone
the
who's
ballet
way
bun.
too
Yeah.
obsessed with ballet. I was like a 70% bunhead and like 30% normal girl. So like I had to find people that also were at my level of intenseness when it came to to ballet.
Is true in life wherever you go. I mean, you have to find your people.
Yeah.
Find like-minded people that are going to help support you, know what your goals are, and push you through.
Yeah.
So what do you think, as far as your time at Harrod, you graduated, you spent a couple years there. What were the biggest takeaways that you got from going just a non-traditional route in high school? Like,
I think the biggest thing which I've talked about before is doing it scared is like
mhm,
the biggest thing because I was terrified. And I also like cried myself to sleep the first night there. And I was like, when am I going to see my parents again? Like, obviously, I knew I was going to see you on Thanksgiving, but I was like, I needed it to be sooner. And so I think doing it scared because the only way for me to actually grow and like actually like enjoy Herod was for me to like have those really like hard couple months, you know, of adjustment. And so every day got better. I think another thing is just like taking one day at a time and putting yourself out there because I would have not survived if I didn't confide in other people, I started like loving like my like resident supervisors. They were college age people that like uh that really were like outside of ballet. So like if you know, didn't want someone that was super in the ballet world, like you could really confide in those people. And I'm still friends with like some of them today. And so that was a huge thing. So I think just like a takeaway is do it scared, take one day at a time, truly, like
Mhm.
one day at a time because it does get better if you just focus on like, how am I going to make today an okay day, like a productive day, and, not let's just make today the best that we can with what we have. And I think like when you are scared and like don't have like the friends yet and you don't have your routine yet and you're like really, like, uncomfortable because it does, like, get better over time, and I
Right.
think 100% confiding in the people around you, and if you have no one around you that you don't feel comfortable to confide in, like, you kinda have to make that for yourself, like, for me, like, we had, like, weeks and weeks of, like, icebreakers, which I hate, like, I never liked that, but it helped me because we would, like, play games or, like, we would do a lot of, like, "Hi, I'm Megan, and my fun fact is," like, whatever. And as much as annoying at the time it was to, like, be sitting in a circle and, like, do all those, like, camp type of activities, it, like, helped because people would have, like their personalities would be brought out, and then, like, really quickly, even though I was still, like, in my day-to-day, like, that harsh, like, academic and dance schedule, how rigorous it was, at the end of the day, like, I would be with my friends, and I started becoming really close with people, and they also were really scared, and they also were really uncomfortable, and they also were really adjusting, and I started really confiding in them, and that's when it just got better. And by like the first semester was the hardest, and then by the second semester, I was like excited to come back and see my roommate Chloe and see my other friends, and like it made it so much better.
Right, right. So there was a transition season from Herod into to college.
Hmm.
There was an injury, there
Yeah.
was a surgery, there was a thinking that you were going to be able to dance in college, and that didn't happen. But I would kind of like to focus on you ended up going to TCU,
Hmm.
which was a great school for you. Let's talk a little bit about rejection
Yeah.
and how, because there was a lot of you building up, going to Harrod, spent your whole lifetime, thought you're going to dance professionally. You had the injury, all of that. How, as a young adult, did you start to learn how to handle the rejection and disappointment? And
Yeah.
disappointment when things don't go as you planned at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd say, like, for the injury, it was super sudden because, I mean, my foot had been in pain for about a year and a half, and I kept dancing on it, and I basically shattered the ball of my foot, or the 2 small bones and the ball of my foot, and I had to get a screw put into my ball of my foot, and so when that was happening it was terrifying, so I was like, "Well, senior in high school, now I guess I have to look at colleges because I don't think that I'm gonna be auditioning for a ballet company," and so that was really weird because it was just like, "What what is happening?" And I think in those situations, like, when you're at a crossroad in your life, like, it can either be really scary or you can allow it to be exciting because, like, you really don't know what's next. And so for me, like, it was a hard time because I was in my boot. I just had to, like, sit on the floor and watch everyone dance, or it was a long recovery process of, like, going to PT every day, and just, like, basically just being on the outs. And I had to really like look inward during that time and think like, what else do I like? Like, who's
Mm.
Megan? Like outside of dance, like what do I like? And so I love being with people. I love socializing. I'm very creative and imaginative, and ever since I was little, I've just been making up stories. And even when I was learning how to read, I was making up stories. I love stories.
Yeah.
Um, I love to chat. And so I think, like, I liked ballet in the sense that it was performing and there was a storytelling that you can do with just movement, and it's so effortless and beautiful, and it's basically miming, like, you're not can't speak. I hated public speaking, it was perfect for me, and I think, when I found out, like, oh, those are the things about dance that I really love, like, what are, like, careers or, like, other things that I can do that could be creative? And I went through this phase where, like, I would have to go back to my dorm room early at Harrod because everyone had rehearsals and I had nothing to do, and I would just start watching, I would look up all these, like, creative careers, and I always loved fashion, which is, like, I just loved it, and so I, like, randomly would just go down, like, YouTube rabbit holes of, like, what's a personal shopper? What's a stylist? And, like, should I go to fashion school? Like, I just, like, was thinking of, like, the wheels were turning of what career could I have? And it excited me in the sense that, like, I could almost, like, change routes, like, I wasn't, like, stuck to ballet, like, I'm more than ballet, and my creativity sure, like, that ballet was a huge part of that, but, like, there's so many avenues of creativity that I can pursue, and so that excited me, and so when basically I was injured and looking for hope, like, that was kinda my shining light of, like, "Okay, you know what? Like, it's not over. My life isn't over. Like, there's so much there's so many other avenues that I could pursue." And so I think, like, that's what got me interested into, like, the PR and advertising program, and, like, ultimately, like, that's why I was so excited about TCU, and I think, like, now, like, dance is something that I, like, have fun doing on the side, like, I like to take dance classes in Dallas, but ultimately, like, I have a creative career, and I'm, like, very, like, happy with that.
And just to unpack that just a little bit,
Yeah.
I love what you said. First, I remember when, all this happened and you came to us and said, but mom, I'm more than just a dancer. I'm more than a dancer. There's other things that I love doing. It was a really hard and sad time because you
Yeah.
had prepared your whole life for it. But I think you had developed into a strong enough person where you knew that there was other things. And I like what you just said is you looked at not just the ballet, but you looked at what were all the gifts within ballet that could
Mhm.
translate into something else.
Yeah,
And that's really what you ended up doing is you realize
totally.
I'm really good with people. I'm super creative. I've been storytelling my whole life lately through ballet. How can I translate that into a career path? And that's what you ended up doing. And really
Yeah.
when we reach a dead end in life, you have to do that kind of soul searching.
Yeah,
What is it at my core that I'm really good at? What are my
yeah,
gifts? How can I use that to move me forward?
yeah. And I also think, like, something I wanna say, I saw a video the other day where a girl was like her, like, boyfriend, like, broke up with her, and her coworker asked her, like, "Oh, like, hey, like, how's, like, like, your relationship going or something?" And she goes, "Oh, like, we broke up." And he goes, "Oh, congratulations." Instead of like, "Oh, I'm so sorry." And it was interesting, he said, like, rejection is redirection. He was like, "You're one step closer to finding your person then, so congratulations." And I'm like, I love that mentality, and, like, obviously, it's different here with, like, a career and, like, what you're doing with your life, but, like, when you're rejected or, like, something happens where, like, you know, you're entering a new phase, like, that's so exciting to be entering a new phase, and, like, you have, like, so many, like, memories to unlock and, like, parts of you to unlock, and I think, like, that's what I basically, like, had to choose to be optimistic about that
Yeah.
when I
It's a
was scared.
choice.
Yeah,
It
it was like, "Congratulations, you get to learn more about yourself now."
Right, right, and sometimes we find out what we were meant to do through the process of elimination, and that was definitely a hard season,
Yeah,
but I'm so
totally.
you really grew and blossomed, and you've been able to take that forward. So
Yeah,
what would you say, you've graduated from TCU, and we could go on and on, but let's just to kind of wrap it up, what would you say to the girl who's leaving for college, or even who's graduating from college, even just in that transition stage? We talked before we came on, we talked about once you're out, once all this preparation phase is over of all the schooling, the college, everything, and you're out, what happens then? What are the emotions and things that you can expect to feel once you're kind of done with preparation?
yeah. I think for me, like, you know, been going to the summer programs, been going to Harrod, went to TCU, all those things, all those transitions were easier than the transition into post grad because I was going into organizations. I was going into a environment where I was going to be around people that were like minded and my age. So even though they were hard transitions, it was nothing like my transition into post grad. And that's not to scare anyone to listen because I think post grad can be like a really beautiful and, like, fun time, and it is such a, like, fun time, but it's such a weird transition because you've been, like, on this path, and then all of a sudden, like you said, it just stops,
Mm.
and, like, no one's really telling you what to do anymore, and so you kinda have to figure it out, and so it's very freeing, but it's also can be very lonely and isolating, and so, like, for me, when I like moved to Dallas. I moved with my best friend Ashley, and it was me and Ashley were used to like doing everything together. And so it was weird that like I was working remotely, she was going into an office every day. We would see each other like at nights and like watch TV or something like that, but it was like still this like weird loneliness. And so like even now, like 2 years post grad, I I think the biggest takeaway for people that are going through that transition is that, like, everyone feels lonely, and even though, like, you can't see that or, like, your friends, like, aren't in your everyday life anymore, doesn't mean they aren't there, and I have to remind myself that, especially living alone, um, is that, like, oh, I can't see, like, my best friends every single day or even every single weekend. Like, normally, sometimes I go, like, a couple months, and it's, like, really sad, but that doesn't mean they aren't, like, my best friends still, you know? And so I think knowing that is huge, and also just, like, I feel like everyone feels that same way. Everyone's still, like, going through that transition together, just not together. Like, not physically with you, but, like, emotionally with you. And so I think, like, the biggest thing is to remind yourself of that, like, in the day-to-day when you're going grocery shopping by yourself, working out by yourself, driving by yourself to work or whatever it is, like or, like, even being in a job industry that, like, no one really gets or relates to, like, you're not alone in that. And so I think the biggest thing is to be if you want to keep your friendships, you wanna keep, your close relationships with your family members, your loved ones, like, you can reach out, and I think we forget to reach out. I've had to really, like, put an effort of, like, the second a friend pops into my head, I will text them and just be like, "Hi, how are you?" Takes me 2 seconds.
Yeah.
I'll do it whenever, and even if, like, I can't text for, like, hours on end. Like, I at least want them to know that I'm, like, thinking of them and, like, checking in.
Right.
Um, and so I think that's huge. Another thing is to always be planning something to look forward to because like in college or like during your school years, like you're always like looking forward to summer, winter break, like spring break,
Mhm.
something on the weekend, like, and when you're in, the real world, you don't really have anything to look forward to unless you give yourself things to look forward to, which is
Right.
really fun in the sense that, like, it's your life, like, you have this free will, like, you can plan a trip somewhere, or, save up for something, like, fun and plan that, so I think always, like, even if it's something small, like, "Oh, tonight, like, I'm just gonna invite a friend over to, watch our favorite movie." But you have, like, that, like, scheduled in, it makes things a lot better. Or just, like, planning trips, planning something, planning a night out with your friends, or it's always good to do that.
Great intentionality. You are so much better at this than I am with the friends. And just
Yeah,
you've always been so intentional, and you didn't go through a traditional schooling environment either. And
yeah,
you have friends like around the world, and you keep up with them. And you're
yeah.
always so inspirational to me in that aspect. And
Thank
just
you.
to speak on the loneliness, because
Yeah,
as a mom, we go through the same thing, and we had talked about
yeah,
that, the kids leave, and then all of a sudden we have this emptiness, and it's kind of a weird sense of lonely. It's like all of a sudden
yeah,
you, like, from all this activity, driving everywhere, being the chauffeur, the counselor, the chef, everything, and then it stops like
yeah.
overnight, and
Yep,
it is a very weird sense of loneliness. And can you speak just quickly on something you've done, and I've done it as well, both of us, high five to both of us, to create friendships where there isn't ones, because leaders initiate, right?
yeah,
If there's something in our world that we need, then we create it, then we
yeah.
initiate it. So do you know what I'm talking about?
I think so. Are you talking about when I went to, like, the spin class thing by myself?
Well, yeah, just that, but also you've been really good about
Putting
um
yourself out there?
and just lately, like I would say in the last 6 months or a year, you've been super intentional about meeting somebody different for coffee or a drink after work or
Yeah,
so.
yeah,
You call it freights, friend dates. Just
yeah,
super intentional about making friends. So if you're
yeah,
feeling lonely, there's
mhm,
something you can do about it, but
yeah,
it's
and
going out.
I think for me, like, moved to Dallas with, like, my best friend Ashley. Ashley moved back to Fort Worth, and then all I really had in Dallas was, like, my boyfriend Keaton and his friends, and I, like, wanted my own, like, girlfriends, and so, like, for me, it's like, if you want that, like, you have to go out and get that, and so it was really scary at first to, like, put yourself out there, but I basically started seeing all these, like, Dallas, like, happy hour, like, girl groups, like, there was so many, like, post-grad groups in Dallas, and I guess that's a perk of living in a bigger city, is, like, there was all these girls that were in the same exact boat as I am, just graduated from wherever, moved to Dallas, don't know anyone, trying to meet friends, and
Mhm.
so, like, I went to, like, this SoulCycle event, I met some girls there, I've, for work, just have been, like, trying to network and meeting with people, connecting with people, getting coffee, and I've made friends that way, and I think, like, whenever I'm at something social, I, like, try my hardest to, like, connect with people and just really put myself out there, and I've been able to meet, like, a lot of new friends, and I've been able to meet people that I've just gotten, like, super close with too, which is exciting, and so, yeah, I think, like, you kinda have to, again, just do it scared, like, because it is scary, and it is awkward, like, it's okay if it's awkward because I feel like everyone's awkward when it comes to, like, those networking, like, socializing events. It's really uncomfortable until you just, like, find a buddy, and then you're both in it together, and it gets a lot better. But just kind of forcing yourself to try new things or going alone to things is fine because sometimes you bump into someone. Also, give someone a random compliment and be like, "Love your shoes, like, where are they from?" Like, that's that's a huge one. Like,
Yes.
compliment anyone's outfit and ask where they got it, and then just have some type of follow-up, and I'll be okay.
It'll be good. Yeah, very,
Yeah.
very good tips. Very good tips. So one last question. What's next for Megan?
Oh,
What are you looking forward to? You talked about looking forward to things. So I always like, what are you
yeah.
doing to grow? What are you looking forward to right now?
I mean, right now, I feel like I'm still getting acclimated to Dallas life, so I'm still always on the hunt for new Dallas friends. I'm looking forward to planning trips to see my old college friends. That's always a big thing. I'm looking for a new job in marketing, so like always just trying to push myself forward. And so right now, like I'm trying to like better myself of like, you know, finding more friends, finding a new job, also hobbies, huge thing. So like trying to find new things to do. And I have like really reconnected with ballet again and have started to take those ballet classes at a local dance company here. So, and I found other studios too. So, like, I feel like kind of just pushing myself to try new things and meet new people and also explore new places.
Yeah.
That's
And
all on
yeah.
my agenda.
You've always been curious, and I
Yeah.
love that. I mean, you started out life as a little bit more on the fearful side, but every step that you've pushed yourself, you've grown a little bit stronger, and then tried something bigger, and then grown a little stronger, and it got even bigger. And I'm so beyond proud of you. So proud to be your mom, and you've done a good job, and you've got amazing things ahead of you.
Thank
So
you.
thank
All
you.
thanks to you and the Jersey Mike's debit card excursion of
Yeah, we
2015.
have had an experience together.
Yes. Yeah. So
Lots of
hold on to
stories.
the positive experiences. That's
Yeah.
another piece of advice.
So thank
Yeah.
you, Megan, for joining me on our Mother's Day episode. And
Thank
to
you.
all who are watching, make sure to subscribe, and we will see you next Monday. And thank you so much for watching 52 Coffees podcast, and make sure to check out Lead My Life. Take care.